Hello and welcome to the Bank Marketing Show. I am Chris Bates, one of the hosts of the show here. Hello, Dan.
I'm the other host, Dan Vallis. Nice to see everybody, hear everybody, or not really because you're listening to us, but good to have you here.
Good to be with you, Dan.
Yeah. We've got another kind of cool topic here. You know, we have an episode every once in a while that we kind of stray a little away from marketing here, but for good reason. And I'm excited for today. Chris, you want to set us up?
Absolutely. So yeah, we want to welcome you, Scott Stevens, and super glad to have you with us today.
Well, thank you, Chris. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So for introduction, Scott is the Chief Information Security Officer for Integrity Technology Solutions. You guys are based out of Illinois, and you work with banks, financial institutions, healthcare, and other entities all over the place. And I know are very dialed into working closely with community banks in the IT sector. And we'll even talk some today about how that intersects with and works around and in hand with marketing. But Scott, we're honored and super glad to have you with us today.
I'm glad we were able to work this out. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, good. So as we were preparing for the show today, Scott, I'll go a little further with my comment just a minute ago, is we all know that marketing and IT really need to work hand in hand closely together. So in some instances, that may just be in terms of web, those types of things, but we're going to cover a lot of other ground today, from security and regulatory and all types of things. And all of those are enormously concerning to marketing and bank leadership as a whole, right? So I think it's really cool that you guys have intersected and niched into this industry a good bit. And I think, and again, from a marketing guy's perspective, Scott, we often see that community banks really rely on a legacy infrastructure in terms of their IT. And their systems. So I'm curious a little bit, maybe give a little bit of an overview of yourself, and then talk to us about kind of what you see as a priority for modernizing and those types of things for IT systems, particularly for community banks.
Well, in terms of information about myself, I have been in the industry now for about 40 years, and I didn't start when I was 8. So in a couple days. I started out in the IT, networking, firewalls, wide area networks, and I actually worked for a large accounting firm. So was directly involved in compliance, was directly involved in audits for regulated entities. And I was one of the IT guys for the accounting firm that would go back and do these audits, what it used to be called EDP reviews. So I've been in this for a few days.
Yeah.
So as we've gone through and worked with the financial institutions, my career has continued. I got directly into security about 15 years ago, where really everything I did was around IT security, governance, controls. And then about 10 years ago, joined Integrity as the Chief Information Security Officer. So Integrity was a managed service provider, working with a number of different clients, but had a large number of community banks. And so we really started focusing on building out the specific security services that would meet these regulatory compliance requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So been in the industry for a long time. I have seen an awful lot. One of my first jobs was sitting in front of computers creating batch files in DOS. So just to make things work easier.
That was just a minute ago.
A minute a day. Yeah. So that really kind of leads to that legacy infrastructure. I've seen a lot of legacy infrastructure. And in terms of financial institutions today, there are a number of legacy systems that are out there. Now, this is a continuum. It's always a moving target. Today, one of the greatest things that we've seen is the need to move away from Windows 10. Windows 10 end of life was in November. And so it's just a matter of trying to get everything set up and working into Windows 11, get the operating system set up. So it's just there are a number of tasks that need to be done. But with the smaller community banks, a lot of the work we've seen, a lot of the conversations we've had, is around just keeping the legacy infrastructure up to date. And we've also seen a number of people requesting moving their data out to SharePoint or OneDrive rather than keeping the data on the local servers on the local hard drives. And this ties directly into the marketing as well. If marketing wants to use AI to create marketing materials, having the data within SharePoint would allow them to leverage something like Copilot to be able to reach in and create custom materials for the respective financial institution because your data is right there. So there's been a number of banks, credit unions that have come to us talking about how do we move this? We typically are starting with different departments. We start moving the files off the local servers, and it moves financial institutions away from having that capital expenditure. Oh, every 5 years we have to replace our servers. Well, if you've got the right licensing, you probably already have a terabyte of storage with Microsoft. So let's figure out how to best secure that, leverage that, and use it.
Yeah, have an infrastructure that's a little bit more resilient to change.
That's
You're
right.
not upgrading. You don't have to worry about physical machines. It's in the cloud. The cloud systems are upgraded. If you're choosing ones that you recommend, ones that Microsoft recommends, they follow the compliance regulations and have already been kind of vetted. You're not,
the controls are well known. How
Yeah.
to make them how to set them up properly for use at a financial institution.
Yeah, well, and the point you made in there was really interesting too, of getting the files you're using like to create marketing assets, to create even non-marketing stuff, right? Files to feed your underwriting process, those types of things. Like, there's a lot of places those could live, and if you can migrate them up there, it enables lots of other stuff. It enables you to use lots of other technologies in a more secure way than sitting in a local server that somebody can get into easier, right?
Yeah, it really does. And it takes a lot of the support burden away from you because now you don't have to keep that box running in the rack where your files are residing. And then it also opens you up, whether it's people working from home. And this also kind of gets into just leveraging what you have. We run into so many businesses, so many regulated businesses that have invested in the right Microsoft licenses, whether it be the Microsoft Business Premium, whether it's the E3, the different licenses that are available. Take advantage of that functionality. So many times we see people with those licenses, but then they also have another product for spam filtering, and they're paying for another product for email encryption, and they're paying for another product for this or that. You've already got the solutions that you need. It's about implementing them correctly, and really it can save money. It can save your spend because you don't need all of these other third-party bolt-on products. Yeah. The functionality is there.
Yeah, and Scott, I think often when we talk about modernizing in terms of technology, bank leadership probably goes straight to, oh, that's going to be expensive and it's going to be a multi-dimensional. And what you're describing as modernization is actually more of an encapsulation and a streamlining in a lot of ways, or certainly can be, which is a bit more of an encouraging way to think about it. Yeah.
We need to consider consolidating who our vendors are. There are too many. If you think about in the financial institutions, we have to do our risk management. We have to look at vendor due diligence. What if I can cut a half a dozen vendors off that list? Yeah. It really makes that an easier task.
Yeah. Well, and speaking to that, I know that everybody listening, their brains go straight to, okay, well, that sounds great, but you mentioned risk. So going in terms of risk, we start to talk about security and cybersecurity, right? And that's obviously in your IT world, such a major issue and a huge component of that. So with cyber threats, and especially in this day of AI, the evolution is exponentially more rapid. Yeah, it's not it's not years or months. It's like hours and minutes, right? I'm sure. So, for community banks, having to work within budgets and teams that are not what some of the huge banks have, that have entire teams that are taking care of this. So they're having to outsource to partners like you guys and those types of things. What do you think are some of the most critical cybersecurity practices in terms of what needs to be prioritized? What's most important?
Well, as we talk about the move to the cloud, as we consider the different things that are happening with those Microsoft accounts, the top priorities have been how to continue securing your 365. If bank leaders don't know what their Microsoft Secure Score is, please get familiar with this. Everyone using Microsoft, every tenant has its own secure score. It's a percentage that is assigned to your tenant based upon what controls you have implemented. This depends on what licenses you have, and it depends on what the IT team has done or your outsourced provider has done to secure your environment. Now, things like how the email spam filters are set up are going to contribute to this score. Are you enforcing multi-factor authentication on all your users? Do you have too many administrators? And this is a really common sense way to look at your 365 tenant and say, are we doing what we should be doing to avert cyber threats? Oftentimes we're looking for, those that have the E3 licenses or the business premiums, which are most common in the bank's size that we're talking about. We would want to see a Microsoft Secure Score north of 70%. And if you can get that up into the 80s or mid 80s, that's an A plus. But that's just one of the areas that financial institutions should be looking at. And it's something it's a meaningful number. It is something that we can tie back to. And even if you're non-technical, guess what? A 70 is better than 65. So, it's something that we can say, okay, well, where are we at? And what are we going to do to make this better? So it's continuing to evolve, continuing to implement. Microsoft keeps adding more and more functionality to 365 for security. Are you using it?
Yeah, we had a couple episodes ago, we had Charles Lefebvre on from Cadence, who's our director of compliance, and one of the interesting things he said around that, we were talking about kind of AI policy and compliance and regulations, and he's like, there's a lot of banks that are kind of saying, we can't use AI, or we can only use certain things. Like you've got Copilot already. You're already in this ecosystem that's got it. So whether you want it or not, it's there. And, that's, we kind of made the point that it's a really kind of easy way to do it while not worrying too much about compliance, because you've got, then you need other sort of usage rules of don't throw social security numbers and sensitive financial data into it, of course. But just from the technology standpoint, you've already got these tools, and if you're already set up on the Microsoft ecosystem, the cybersecurity stuff you're already worrying about it. You're not introducing a new tool. You've already got it. So your policy shouldn't be don't use AI or use AI. It should be, here's what you can put into it and what you wouldn't. But you wouldn't, we also said there, you wouldn't email out a bunch of social security numbers and sensitive financial information. So just don't put it into AI. But I like your focus on the Microsoft ecosystem, because it's kind of like they've got that score built in. They're already worrying about, they're already thinking through how to help institutions like community banks, make sure they're covered. And of course, community banks, like working with you and your team, they've got the expertise. But a lot of banks that might not be can rely on those tools too.
Well, Dan, as you talk about AI and leveraging the security controls, banks need to take a position with AI. And putting your head in the sand is not a position.
Yeah.
So your position may be, we're going to limit it only to certain areas or certain products. We've got other banking clients that say we want to be more progressive with our use of AI, and they are building out their internal AI acceptable use policy, which we always recommend is the first step. You come up with an AI acceptable use policy, and guess what? You can use Copilot or ChatGPT to help you write it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love those
That's right.
meta use cases for AI. It's like
yeah.
So we want to get that policy in place, and then we oftentimes recommend that the bank start leveraging a small subset of their user team. And we usually recommend marketing be part of that, because marketing finds a great deal of benefit from using AI.
Yeah, Scott, I think that's a great point, because marketing so often are the ones that are needing to generate and transfer large files and large bits of information and communicate so much externally, whereas operations, for example, is largely about internal communications and processes and functions, and the entire purpose of being for marketing is external facing, to some, whether that be with vendors like us, and partners like us, or media sources and sending things out, or whether they're doing SEO and digital advertising themselves, and so many different things and facets about it. And those external processes for marketing have to go along with those risk management practices that you're talking about, and those use systems and all of that. So for banks to say, we're going to pull the reins and not use AI, it's like, okay, well, how often is someone in your bank picking up their phone and putting something in Google? Well, you just used AI. So, they did. So, right, do they have risk management practices around that? And is that under our IT umbrella, or is it not? That's where it really gets, I don't know, you may say, outside of regulation and security and all types of things.
Well, and we started off the conversation, I brought up licenses. A lot of people don't realize, but Microsoft includes their enterprise data protection security for specific licenses of 365. Now, most all, if not all of our clients have those business premiums or E3s that include Microsoft Enterprise Data Security. So honestly, there's no reason not to use Copilot. Even if somebody were to put a social security number in, that query, that information stays controlled inside your tenant. So there are just educational opportunities where we want to help these financial institutions see that, okay, here's how it's set up. It's going to use the security you put in place for SharePoint and OneDrive. So if you've got it hardened so you can't have anonymous links, there are certain controls to put in place, but they're very straightforward and not very hard to do. Once those basic controls are in place, why not start opening this up?
Yeah.
Make sure your policy reflects reality.
And as you're talking there, I'm thinking, if you don't have a policy, or if you're kicking the can down the road on an acceptable use, policy, what's really happening is your employees are going to probably use it anyway.
Yeah.
They're going to, and by putting the policy in place, you say, hey, you can use it, but only if you use Copilot, because we have all these protections in place, and you shouldn't put the social security number in. But if you do, there's super low risk of it getting hacked or it going elsewhere. And that's why we've got, help your employees understand that. And, that in and of itself should stop a lot of the, hey, I brought this file home to use ChatGPT on my home computer kind of stuff. And, and direct where you want it to go. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things in the security is just making sure people aren't doing stuff rogue.
Dan, you're exactly right, because it's that shadow IT. It's the people that are using products that are not sanctioned by the bank. I'll give you a quick example. There's a business I've worked with. They had employees that had seen a commercial for Grammarly. There's nothing wrong with Grammarly. Perfectly good product.
Yeah.
But there's a free edition. And if you use the free edition, your queries and your information train their large language model. Meaning your information could be the answer to somebody else's question. That's exposure. That's risk.
That's scary for a bank. Yep.
That is scary. So how do we set it up to provide people access to these types of tools? Because they are going to use them, to your point. I don't want them bringing them home to use them.
You're right. Well, and that's a great example of the kind of regulatory and safe practice systems that financial institutions have got to have in place, and they're so key. And to your point, I mean, you mentioned Grammarly, but I know between the three of us, we could come up with a list of 100 in about 5 minutes because it's moving so fast, and new technology initiatives and those types of things. And it's certainly true in the marketing realm. It's happening so fast. And so, how do you think that financial institutions need to be more responsive and smart about the regulatory pressures while still being able to move technology forward and new technology initiatives?
Well, and one first point that I want to make, and we've said this a couple times already in our conversation, it moves so fast.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out, it will never move this slowly again because the rate of change is only increasing. So if there's ever been a time to plant your flag and say, here's our policy and here's where we're going, that time is now.
Well, and to add to that, I think it's the technology is moving so fast. Like, I was going to say, like, if banks are slow, the government is really slow. And, the federal regulations are definitely not moving as fast as the technology. And that gap, I think, is going to widen, right? So right? I mean, would you agree? Like, it makes the things like the acceptable use policies and getting your Microsoft score in the right range even more important because there aren't federal laws there, protecting the stuff yet. And, so your bank is, more on the hook to be thinking about it in the shorter term.
Well, but then let's consider what do we have today in terms of guidance, regulatory guidance, because it does apply. So when you say, what do we do to start leveraging these tools, or how do we get this genie back in the bottle? We're going to use the tools that are there today. I mean, every bank should have a vendor management program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're considering, where is our data? Where does it go? I mean, our banking clients are going to their vendors and saying, give me your SOC 2s. Well, we need to include these AI type solutions in that vendor management program. We simply bring those in. And if we think about, all right, with all this going on, how do we keep up? There are a number of our clients that do outsource this. There's a number of very good services out there that assist banks with their vendor management, where they've got a portal. Even in some cases, the third party will be reaching out to request and review those SOC 2 documents. So we want to continue leveraging the types of controls that we have today. We need the policy. That's the same administrative controls as we've always been building. We just need to add in acceptable use for AI. Let's use the vendor management program that we have today. But we need to include those AI type products that we're going to be using. You have to consider, where is my data going? Who's using it? And how are they protecting it?
I think too, like we say acceptable use of AI. And then what I've seen, what's really been happening the last year or two is AI has just become more and more pervasive. And, in like the example I said earlier of like you're using Microsoft 365, you're not thinking of that as an AI tool, but it's got Copilot baked in, so it sort of is. And that, it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I was talking to one of my clients about this of it's a, AI usage policy, but it's also just like, I don't know, general, what can we do and not do with data? Just think about like the acceptable use of that sensitive data and the way you use tools more than AI, because AI is just, it's almost everywhere now.
It is.
And in a few more years, there's not that distinction between tech versus, just general tech versus AI is not going to be there anymore. It's just going to be tech.
It's going to be part of it. It is. Yeah. It is part of it. And actually, we found out here about a week ago, Microsoft is going to start putting Copilot directly into the Office apps, even if you're not licensed for Copilot. So that free Copilot that you have access to today is going to be embedded now into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. Now, there are some limits because Microsoft still wants to sell their Copilot licenses, but it's so pervasive. It's in every product.
Yeah. Well, and then you're going to have problems. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know if Microsoft's going to do this, but like your Grammarly example of like, they'll put it in for free, but it's going to train their model on it until you upgrade to the enterprise version, and then it won't. And it's like that's all that stuff's really hard to track against the 30 or 50 different software tools that are used across the bank. If each of them has a kind of a freemium version of their AI in it, it's like really hard to track. And we use like my team uses Canva for marketing materials, and you can just click a button and have it write your copy for you, and then you can talk to it a little bit and but it's really easy to just throw in either not necessarily just sensitive customer data, but sensitive strategy, sensitive brand stuff. And so I think as pervasive as it's getting, there's that usage policy. Banks should be thinking broader and just having those kind of permission lanes for their employees to use.
And then that also brings in education, because it's the more that we can help people see and understand where you're putting that information in, the more chances we have to prevent misuse. So I know within our company, our AI policy, not easy to say fast, but our AI policy is very supportive of AI. I mean, we are a technology company, and we are constantly trying to leverage the tools that are out there, but yet we want to make sure we're putting those bumpers up so that we are using it correctly. Training is probably the biggest piece of our policy. I mean, making sure people know how to use it.
Yeah, that sets up a structure where you're intentional as to where the gates are in the fence, and you're guarded about those gates. And once you have those processes, systems, policies in place and doing that, then you can guard those gates and make sure that, your team has access to emerging technologies as they come and those types of things, but that IT has a voice in the security levels, the regulation, and all the things that are baked into that. It makes a ton of sense. But I'm not sure all the banks are thinking about it that way yet. Yep. So maybe it seems so ambiguous and so scary that, to be overly cautious about it is really not the right way to go about it, is it, Scott?
It's not, and I like the word intentional that you just used. It is about what is our policy, where are we today, what's our baseline? Determine what that baseline is, put that into your policy, and be intentional about it.
Yeah. Love it.
Well, we've been talking about kind of what to do today. I want to talk, and we kind of hinted on, AI just becoming more and more pervasive, and the lines between, the separation between AI and tech in general blurring. But what do you think? Like, where do you see the next 5 or 10 years of technology going in a way that, and how does that impact community banks? Like, where do you see, this stuff going? We need to get our usage policies in place now. Make sure our employees aren't kind of going rogue with AI tools with cybersecurity. But how is that going to change over the next 5 or 10 years? What should bank leaders be looking out for?
I think if we look at the use of technology, just draw a very simple picture in your head. We're going to have endpoints. These endpoints might be laptops, they might be desktops, they may be mobile devices, phones, tablets, you name it, but we've got endpoints. We're going to have apps that are hosted or in the cloud. And then there's a connection between the endpoints and those apps in the cloud. It's really not a complex picture. And then we consider, what are the controls on those endpoints? What type of zero trust network architecture can I use? How can I make sure that when you log onto that device, it's you, and every time you're doing something, it's constantly re-authenticating to confirm that it's you? Do we have that device encrypted? Do we have tools on that to look for suspicious, malicious activity? It's about really hardening those devices and securing the connection between those devices and that cloud site. The term It's become very popular, but ZTNA or Zero Trust Network Architecture. And that is something that's here today, that over the next 5+ years, everything we do is going to be following that zero trust model. We need to make sure we know who is doing what, where, and how. Do we have audit logs? Can we wind the clock back to figure out what happened if something went sideways? So you really, over the next several years, it's just going to be a continued move to cloud and hosted apps. And we need to be focused on how do we secure those endpoints and those connections. It's really kind of consolidating. It's somewhat simplifying, because no longer do we have to maintain all these servers in our office and these racks of this type of equipment or that type of equipment, the VPN type equipment. I mean, all of this should be moving away. We're moving away from this type of infrastructure.
The hardware based thinking is just evolving and changing and going away. Yeah.
Capital expenditures are moving away.
Yeah.
It's really turning into OpEx instead of CapEx.
Great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, now they can spend more on their marketing, Scott.
That's right.
Right. Hey, it's just a thought. I'm just throwing that out there to our audience. So, yeah. As digital technologies get better and better in our realm of marketing, then it is smart spend. So this is just a thought.
Just the marketer conspiracy theory that all of us marketers have been working towards over the last few decades. Is
that's right.
Move in the cloud, free up CapEx for marketing expenses.
There you go. Love it. Well, Scott, this has been some great thought processes, I think, for our audience, and ways to be deliberate in thinking about IT as a whole, but then how its modernization and even the regulatory challenges. And you've made some great recommendations, and I think some good walkaways for our folks today that are things that they can focus on, and even in the looking ahead. And because we're past the days of, I don't want to do the TFA because it's such a difficult thing and all that kind of stuff. But that zero trust that's not like if. It's how it has to, not really even in the future, but currently has to be the case, right? Yeah. So,
and it prepares you for the future. So getting that in place now, it helps to future-proof what you're doing.
Yeah. Great. Well, so Scott, welcome to the tradition of the Bank Marketing Show. Also, is that with our guests, we always like to end with running you through our lightning round. So if you can stick around for a second with that would be great.
Be happy to.
Super. So can you share with us, as the first part of our lightning round here, a personal best, business best?
Yeah, personal best. Just kind of a point of pride. Got 2 daughters. They both are wrapping up college, one of them this week and one in May.
All right.
We made our last college payment. So personally, that is huge.
Wow, you're buying dinner, Scott.
Yeah. Very happy about that. Very blessed. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, congratulations to them and to you. All right, great. What about a favorite book or other resource of yours, Scott?
There's a book that it's been a long time ago, but I've gone back and reread a couple different times. A leadership book called The Servant. And I very much appreciate the insight that provided. It talks about how to be a leader and really how to serve your team and being a servant within a leadership role. And that is one that's really meant a lot to me.
Good deal. Yeah, we'll track that down and link out to it in the show notes. So, all right, Scott, can you think of what's the most impactful piece of advice that you've received?
This is going back a long, long time. I mean, this actually goes back to my grandparents when I probably wasn't more than 5, 6, 7 years old. But one of the things that they would always say, and they even to the point they had a picture that my grandmother had painted that had it on there, but it was serve others first, yourself last, and God always. As far as a piece of advice, that's
There you
what
go.
I try to live by.
That is perpetual wisdom there.
So
Really cool.
at an early age.
Yeah. Well, and then in turn, so what is something that you advise or tell your staff, your team, your clients?
Well, in my role, I'm oftentimes involved in different types of security situations. So, and I want to kind of qualify this. So, is something I always tell my staff and clients, we always have to take the emotion out of the room. When security events occur, we've got to get the emotion out of the room. The bad guys, to them, when they hack into a system, it's no different than you and I going onto a website and buying a pair of shoes. It's just a transaction. To the bad guys, it's just a transaction. But to the impacted party, the victim of this cyber crime, the emotion is running high. You're going all different directions at once. And we just have to clear the room of all emotion. So that's one of the things that I'm always telling my staff. You know, something happens and you get all cranked up. Oh, take the emotion out of the room. What do we know?
Yeah, that's such great advice, Scott, because if we're having to spend time and bandwidth dealing with the fear, the anger, the blame, all these things rather than tackling the issue, we're doing nothing but expounding the problem. So that's great advice.
Yep. We just have to take inventory. What are our assets? What are our risks? And where are we at?
There you go.
Did you expect to have to be a therapist to help people deal with their fear and anger when you started this?
Yeah. Us marketers have to do a lot of that therapy work as well, too. Yeah.
Well, along with that, one other thing that they hear me say a lot, we're going to hurry, but we can't rush.
That's also wise, particularly in IT. Good point.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, this has been great. Can you tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you and check out what you guys do?
Certainly. I can be reached at integrityts.com. That's Integrity Technology Solutions. That takes you to our website. My email is sstevens@integrityts.com. And very happy to reach out to people. I love sharing what we've learned. So it's really a matter of what can we share? How can we help others improve themselves, improve their situations, improve their security? And there's never a shortage of things to be working on.
Very cool.
This industry just keeps changing.
Yeah. Well, Scott, Dan and I are very big on sharing resource information and helping our listeners to move forward as well. So I'll add on to your plug that you guys do a great job in your blogs and other information too. That's probably even expounding on and touching on some of the elements of the topics that we've talked about today too. So I would encourage our listeners to go and check that out.
I appreciate it, Chris.
Absolutely. Super to have you on today, Scott. Really appreciate your time and all the insight.
No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.